we meet regularly with the Secretary of State and Schools Minister.
Miriam.
Thank you. I just want to push the mask wearing from a well-being point of view. You're right, there is no strong evidence that masks reduce transmission. We know that schools aren't drivers of transmission. We know that children aren't at risk from COVID. We don't know, as the Chair has said, the long-term impacts of forcing children to wear masks. There are some studies in Germany that show increase in headaches, decrease in mental health. We know that they reduce the ability for someone to read someone else's emotions by threefold, perhaps more. So do you think it's ethical to introduce a policy on children that has no clear benefits but completely unknown risks?
So I think it's a fair question, and again, it was not a decision I took. It was a question largely in the remit of the Secretary of State and the Schools Minister. But I think fundamentally, you're talking about risks versus the impact it'll have on children. What we do know is that what has the biggest impact on children is if we close schools, and if there are small measures, given that we just don't know enough about this variant at the moment, internationally, not just here in this country. On balance, is it a proportionate step to ask children and adults within communal areas, within school, to wear a mask? On balance,
but not people in offices.
On balance, I think it is. Well, that's a question for other government departments, Chair. But of course, we weren't questioning whether offices are to close. I know, and we all know, the impact that closing a school will have on children and young people. If there are small and proportionate mitigating measures that we can put in place that can avoid that happening, and I appreciate it's an if, but if there are steps we can take that would do that, then I think on balance it is the right thing to do.
I see that point, but unfortunately, the effect of imposing the mask mandate again has not been to give schools a sense of relief that they're being protected. It's actually been that they go further, that they start cancelling activities, isolating children. And so whilst the guidelines might be, some might think they're proportionate and sensible, unfortunately, I've got pages and pages and pages of examples that have been sent by parents across the country of schools that are not following DfE guidelines, that are going well beyond closing schools, isolating children they shouldn't be. So unfortunately, I think actually introducing masks again has had the opposite effect and is more likely to close schools because it's given schools the sense that they can now go further. So what is the department going to do to make sure that schools do stick to the letter of the guidelines and don't go rogue, if you like?
Again, I come back to that point about trusting schools and head teachers and directors of public health to make the right decision. We don't want to be overly prescriptive. We set guidance, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I hear about it too. There are schools that are cancelling activities. I find that deeply regrettable, and Christmas concerts is one of the loveliest things. Unfortunately, as MPs, we very rarely get to go to our children's, but often get to see them online. But they are wonderful, wonderful things. And the Prime Minister, I think, was clear yesterday in a response to say he wants nativities and Christmas concerts wherever possible to go ahead. But there will be some areas where there is a higher prevalence of transmission that directors of public health guidance will say, look, actually big gatherings probably isn't the right thing to do. Or if you've got parents coming to school to watch a play, wearing a mask might be, a sensible precautionary measure. So I think ultimately, on balance, it comes down to trusting schools and head teachers.
But if schools are closing nativity plays and yet people can go to nightclubs,